Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Webb. I'm the Senior Analyst in the Research and Media Unit at TM Forum, and you've joined us today for a live webinar focused on AI-enabled RAN optimization for more efficient and sustainable networks. And this is a TM Forum webinar sponsored by Sutherland, so thanks to Sutherland for that. We've got a great hour ahead of us of some prepared material and some discussion-based sections. So do strap in. We think we've got some really interesting things to share with you. So without further ado, we're going to get underway. And to set the context, really, I'm just going to share a few slides that are based on the research that the Research and Media Unit at TM Forum do. So if I could have the first slide up on screen, please. So the conversation that we're having today is really around network optimization with a particular focus on RAN and how technologies like AI and automation and increasingly autonomous decision-making within networks can help resolve some of the challenges that operators are experiencing as their networks scale up. And one of the things that we're seeing from the community of operators that TM Forum works with is that as networks become more complex, there's that increasing need to leverage automation in the network to handle the complexity of operational functionality in networks. You think more devices, more users, more applications, more traffic and different layers of the network. So all these demands, are aggregating up. So there's a lot that the network's got to deliver in real time in very competitive environments, in which users are making decisions about the network they subscribe to, increasingly based on performance and quality of service, not just on price of subscription packages. So we're seeing that need from operators to go through a journey from automating parts of their network through to autonomous decision making in the network. And that's really what we're going to talk about, because it is a journey. It's a long-term phase of evolution with some key kind of markers along the way and some key achievements. So we're going to be talking about that. But really, I just wanted to frame that conversation to begin with, talking about the autonomous networks concept. This is something that TM Forum has been talking about for quite some time, and we've defined within our autonomous network project a 6-level taxonomy for CSPs to utilize to measure their autonomous network progress, to go from level 0 there, in which operations are entirely manual, moving towards, but perhaps never quite fully achieving, fully autonomous networks in which all the decision making is handled by the network. So really the industry is much more focused on level 4 at the moment, which is a highly autonomous network in which AI is taking much more of a driving role in decision making, but still in partnership with the network operatives within each CSP. So there's 6 stages to that. We're seeing that operators are at different stages of their autonomous network journey. The research that we've done kind of suggests that operators are somewhere around level 2 to 2.5 on average, though we are seeing some operators achieve level 3 and even level 4, not necessarily across all of their network operations, but in certain elements of their network, certain functions or certain domains. And we'll be talking about how operators kind of identify where autonomous networking capabilities make most sense, and when in the journey they should be aiming to level up. So the Autonomous Networks project is a series of quite detailed collateral that you can access via the TM Forum website. So if I could have the next slide up, please. So I'm going to share a few slides now taken from some research that we've done within the media unit at TM Forum based on our surveys of operators in our community. So these slides are taken from a report we published just at the top of the year, our annual AN benchmark report, in which we surveyed over 100 CSPs, in which we asked them how they perceived autonomous networks, how they're implementing it, and what they intend to do with it, what sort of outcomes they're looking for, which use cases they're applying it to, and so on. So just to reiterate what I've said against the previous slide around the kind of levels that operators have achieved so far with regards to that AN model that I just shared, and where they think they're going to be in the next couple of years and perhaps the longer term to 2030. Well, you can see that currently, predominantly the operator community, around 39% at level 1, 30% at level 2, are in the fairly early stages of their AN journey, but the picture shifts by 2026. By that point, a much more significant proportion, 45%, expects to be around level 3, with nearly a quarter of our respondents actually feeling that they're going to be achieving level 4, not necessarily for everything, but in certain parts of their network operations. And then that continues through to 2030, with 81% aiming to be at level 4 and much more consistently across all of their operations by that point. So you can see that journey, that roadmap beginning to take shape in the minds of a lot of operators, but it's certainly quite a difficult thing to achieve, though we believe the benefits of doing so are hugely significant. And in fact, the challenges of not doing so are even greater. And what TM Forum's also trying to do to support this journey is identifying some of the high value scenarios that could be achieved through level 4 autonomous networking, to give operators something to aim for in terms of service areas that would benefit most, perhaps some of the lower hanging fruit that would also really make sense to the return on investment in autonomous networking. Next slide, please. So we also asked about the priorities for operators when they're looking to embark upon or proceed with an existing AN journey. And we asked about the network domains, where in the network they're looking to really focus or their autonomous networking capabilities and really level up. And of course, as you'd imagine, there's quite a mix of responses. Operators looking at various different parts of their network where they feel autonomous networking capability would yield benefits, but there was quite a strong response around the mobile RAN and the mobile core. And as I said, we'll be looking at the mobile RAN in particular. And why is that a priority? Well, because it's a part of the network that does have inherent challenges. It's typically very dispersed in terms of where cell sites are located. There's different types of cell site, macro cells, small cells. There's outdoor, there's indoor, there's different types of backhaul connectivity, whether that's fixed line fiber or whether that's wireless microwave, for example. So quite a combination of different types of technology, different characteristics. And of course, cell sites aren't universally busy. Sometimes they get very dense user footprint periods, particularly located in urban areas, but then can be very quiet at different parts of the day or the night. So we're seeing, differentiation in traffic patterns and so on. But of course, cell sites are also exposed to the elements, and depending on environmental considerations in specific countries, cell sites can be particularly prone to sudden events and failures and things like that. So it's certainly an area of networks, a domain that can be quite vulnerable for operators, quite costly to repair. So it requires a lot of maintenance and prioritization of cell sites to maintain. So not surprising perhaps to see that as a domain of priority. Next slide, please. We also asked about processes related to functions in the network and perhaps use cases as well. Where are operators feeling that autonomous networking capability is going to yield benefits? Where are they addressing, what use cases and functions are they addressing first with autonomous networking? As I've just described around the RAN scenario, fault management, anomaly detection and resolution, highest priority of all. And perhaps no great surprise, and it does genuinely, we believe, at TM Forum yield some of the lower hanging fruits in terms of benefits from proceeding along that pathway to autonomy. Service assurance really also, a very high priority, and again related to that service delivery, troubleshooting, quality optimization, all very valid benefits that can be yielded and very necessary things, bearing in mind not just the network operations pressures that operators are under, but those commercial pressures as well. So we'll talk about the use cases and where AN's getting applied a little bit further in our conversation this afternoon. Next slide, please. But AN is an investment. AN is there's no getting around it. It's a new technology pathway for operators. It's an investment of money. It's an investment of time and knowledge and insight and learning and so on. So you need to be able to measure the benefits of that. You need to be able to prove that there's some return on that investment. So how do you measure that? What are the metrics that you would use to show that AN is actually yielding improvements within the network? Well, we asked about this within the survey as well, and grouping those improvements really into two camps. Firstly, around the customer experience improvement. Is AN actually reducing, the time to recover from service faults? Is it improving the quality of the network or the satisfaction of experience according to your users? And then a second group of indicators around more internal factors, perhaps more around network operations. Is it making things more efficient, more cost effective, and so on? So if I turn your attention to the left-hand side there, you can see some of the improvement indicators that our survey respondents were considering the more significant, and those are around network quality satisfaction and service fault recovery duration, the time it takes to recover from faults. The service delivery satisfaction, very important to gauge what customers feel about the network that you're providing, the services that an operator is offering. And again, lots of other important indicators around fault recovery, time to market for services, service delivery, and so on. So really kind of focused on that commercial side of operations. But equally important is the operations internally. Is that drive towards autonomy and increasing automation in the network actually reducing operational costs, reducing maintenance costs? 83% of our respondents want to see that. And of course, cost is always important, but other factors too. The success rate of automating service provisioning. 76% of operators want to see that as an improvement indicator. That's a judgment, if you like, by which they're getting measured as operational teams. So a lot of things that we could measure as we go along this roadmap to greater autonomy. Next slide, please. So this is the final one I want to put up just to set a bit of context for our conversation. And this is around the challenges, and I think this is where we will be digging in deep in our panel discussion. What are the challenges of implementing AN? This is not trivial. This is technology change. It's phased over typically many years, as I showed earlier. What are some of the challenges our survey respondents were indicating were really quite fundamental ones? No great surprise that integration challenges came out very highly rated as a serious challenge from 53% of respondents there. You can see on that top line, because you're integrating technology change across different domains in the network, different processes, and so on. And there's a complexity to that. Budget concerns also very important. And again, going back to what I was saying about measuring that improvement and that ROI. So I'm not going to dwell too long on those survey points. You can access all of those slides via the pack that you can download. But now I want to turn to the first of our opportunities for interactivity. So if I could put the first poll question up on screen, please. So this is your chance to get involved. So we've got a poll question here for you just to kick things off. Which is the biggest pressure point for your network operations? And I'm particularly asking the operators in the audience to respond, but also vendors who are working with operators, if you can respond, reflecting what you're hearing from your interactions with customers, perhaps. Is it rising energy costs, OPEX reduction targets, sustainability commitments, improving CX, or complexity of managing networks? So we see some answers populating there. I'll give you another couple of seconds to give us your responses. Thank you for those. Please keep those coming in. And in a couple of seconds, we'll see what those responses tell us. Okay, going once, going twice, going 3 times. So we'll end the poll there just to keep things moving, and we'll have a look at the results. So yeah, we're seeing that the highest response actually does concur with what we were showing in our own survey, the complexity of managing hybrid networks. That's a real pressure point for network operations. Um, OpEx reduction targets, actually, that's also crept in there, also very high as well. So managing cost, managing complexity, perhaps not surprising, but also the commercial side as well, improving customer experience, retaining customers, also incredibly important. So thank you very much for your participation in that question. We're going to have another one in just a few moments' time. But I'd like to bring on board our first guest speaker at this point, and that is Jay Nayland from Sutherland. So Jay, if you can come on camera and on microphone for us, and we'll have the next slide up. Thank you. Welcome, Jay. Thank you very much for joining us. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all, and your role within Sutherland.
Fantastic. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate this. Hi, everyone. Name is Jay Nayland. I'm the Vice President and Global Head of Solutions here at Sutherland. Probably have what I think to be one of the best jobs in the world, at least one of the funnest jobs in the world, where we get to use leading edge technology like autonomous networks and AI and create solutions for our clients and help see these things come to life. So it's just a lot of fun. Part of my role here at Sutherland, I spent about 30 years with tier one operators in the US, where I was mostly responsible for or working within the network engineering and operations space. From either that's maintaining operations, deploying new technologies, or even just maturing those operations capabilities. So again, just happy to be here. It's thrilled. I'm happy to speak with you and Lynn a little bit later in the panel. But with that, I'll just get started with
Okay, the
telling
floor is
you
yours. Yep.
about our experience, my experience with autonomous networks. So we go, thank you. So the questions, why are AI and autonomous networks the way forward? Richard did a fantastic job of outlining, how to get there, what it looks like, and even why CSPs and operators need to get there. But just to rehash just a little bit of that, it's primarily because today's networks are more complex than ever. That's driven from 5G rollouts or other technology rollouts, whether it's O-RAN or capacity, site modifications. It drives great complexity. It drives OpEx costs. There's additional regulatory pressures as well that CSPs are using. In fact, CSPs are being pushed from every direction. So the RAN itself, it's responsible for up to about 70% of energy usage within a network. There's so many, it's distributed geographically, and it creates a lot of complexity. It's a massive cost driver and a complexity driver. So with that in mind, CSPs can't just scale infrastructure and operate it linearly as they've done in the past. So that time has changed and it has passed us. So AI and autonomous networks, they're critical and they're not innovative, they're essential. They unlock the ability to self-optimize in real time, adapt in real time. They help operators meet aggressive business goals tied to cost, tied to performance, system performance, churn goals and regulatory obligations and sustainability ultimately. So that's the why. It helps operators bridge that gap into managing these vastly complex and expanding networks. So with that, can we move to the next slide, please? All right, thanks. So Richard also talked a little bit about the challenges. And in reality, the challenges of what he outlined, fantastic. Despite the promises that the AN or autonomous networks can deliver, most CSPs still struggle to realize those tangible values of AN and AI. And why? Well, the reasons, as mentioned, they range from fragmented tools, evolving internal capabilities and skill sets to manage and implement the new capabilities of AI and autonomous networks. And often we've found as we've integrated or interacted and engaged with carriers and operators around the world, it's been the lack of clarity on where to start. They have a lot of capabilities, internal skills and desire, but it's the where and the how. So because of the complexities and the challenges, many of the efforts stall in the pilot mode or in the pilot phase of these autonomous network deployments. So what Sutherland is and many others have experienced is without a structured, contextualized approach, it's difficult to translate that strategy into actual execution, let alone seeing the measurable outcomes that are desired. So in short, CSPs don't just need technology. They need a pathway. They need a roadmap forward. And that's what I'm going to speak to on the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, as Sutherland is spoken with and engaged with CSPs and operators around the world, we've found one thing that's been very consistent, and that everyone agrees that yes, AI and autonomous networks, they're critical. I mentioned that they may not know where to begin or waiting for that one silver bullet or that one premium use case to get started. And that's where we have leveraged the TM Forum's aligned and readiness framework. I mean, we've jumped in on that bandwagon, as they say, and to help identify and find the path forward. So as I mentioned, Sutherland will start with meeting the carrier and the operator with where they're at. Right. And from that's established through TM Forum's ANL, or the autonomous network level assessment that Richard broke down for us. The levels range from 0 to 5, level 0 to level 5. But it's not just about understanding where you are, like that the value, the number doesn't really translate to meaningful, measurable results. It's what you do with that number, and it's how you achieve that number. So TM Forum's AN level assessment, it's not just a generic assessment. It's not a checklist you just go through and get a general idea of where you're at from an autonomous network perspective. It actually requires vigorous investigation and understanding of your systems, your tools, your processes, the data, your data infrastructure, internal skill sets, and the system, the network itself. And with that, and through that process of understanding where you are, we uncover, or this process will uncover, the opportunities forward. Right? What are the AN opportunities? What are some of those use cases that could actually be used to build a roadmap to meet you where you want to be? And often, as Richard indicated in the research, that AN level 4 is where most carriers and operators are headed. It's where they're going to see the most tangible realization of ROI in their investments. It's going to allow them to improve their customer experience and deploy their networks in a manner that they can get to market faster and keep them and maintain the reliability that they're after. So it's that through the assessment, through the gap analysis and understanding of where those opportunities lie, that allows the roadmap to be built. So in short, what I'm getting at is Sutherland's approach, and the approach that we've at least have experienced to be most successful is starting with the assessment, identifying the gaps, identifying the high value use cases, and building a roadmap to get the CSP to where they need to be. So the approach is practical, it's structured, it's fast, and it helps CSPs move confidently from exploration of the space into execution, and to realize measurable and meaningful impact upon execution of those high value use cases. So one standout example that I want to speak to is, it's good to talk in generalities of, well, use cases will get you there. What are the high value use cases? One that I'm going to speak about next is around the AI powered energy optimization for the radio access network. So if we could please go to the next slide. All right, thank you. So before I get started, I really want to speak to call out our partners in this. So I'm going to be speaking to as I mentioned, the Smart Radio Access Network Energy Optimization, and it's a catalyst project that we'll be showcasing at DTW Ignite in a couple of weeks in Copenhagen. And so if you're going to be there, please come out and visit with us. We'll get more in depth and granular into the how we did it, and what the results are. And there's some interactive fun things we can do while we're there. But before I tell you much more about it, I want to call out just our fantastic partners and collaborators. Starting with our CSP champions, we've had GCI and Verizon, as well as Axian and Durago, have been phenomenal in providing us guidance and annotated data, production data to help us build models and test these models. And so without them, this catalyst wouldn't be what it is today. Beyond that, our partners in Snowflake and Tuple and ZenkWorks, all bringing, diving in and jumping with both feet to help develop the solution and the path forward. And it's just been great working with this team. Now, what is it in a nutshell? It's RAN energy optimization at that. So we have, based upon the production data on the system requirements, we developed an SMO, or a service management orchestrator, that leverages It can look at both the O-RAN, like a future looking O-RAN network, as well as legacy RAN, LTE, 5G from the legacy network. And the SMO leverages the RApps for O-RAN and just AI generated applications for the legacy RAN to help forecast and predict traffic usage. And based upon that prediction, can send it back, will sense the traffic in a region and build specific traffic and site profiles or traffic profiles for sites, time of day of week, etc. And then we'll optimize the power of those cell sites to reduce the power settings and in some cases, some of the put to sleep some of the technologies within a particular sector based upon the need at the time, the demand at the time, whether it's forecasted with the ability to respond real time and quickly to turn it back up. So what we've seen in this was we're able to drastically reduce the power consumption at these cell sites while still maintaining zero impact to the customer, which is really ideal, right? You can't do one you should not do one without making sure you take care of the other. So it's been phenomenal. It's something, as I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit more about in DTW Ignite in Copenhagen. Encourage you to come see us out there and we can talk a little bit more about it, but it just shows what is possible when you get the right team together, the right partners, you leverage the correct architecture and standards, whether that's the TM Forum's ODA in open standards. It really is allows you to scale forward for the future. So let's go to the next slide, please. What we've seen so far out of the results of the Catalyst project in this particular use case, it's about a 15 to 20%, or it's projected savings of about 15 to 20% in RAN energy usage, which is significant if you consider the amount of utility cost and that is driven from a RAN network. And up to about 25% reduction in utility costs, 20% reduction in energy usage, and then about a 20% carbon emission reduction, which helps with the sustainability goals, of course. But that all translates to real EBITDA gains, right? While still preserving, as I mentioned, the customer experience. So even better than that, these results don't take forever, right? These can be realized in months and not years. And it's because it's built upon the open standards that I mentioned, and it's scalable and ready for the future. So as I mentioned, this is just one of many. Richard indicated that there were multiple areas to focus on, whether that's predictive analytics, fault management, etc. This is one fantastic use case that's been fun and exciting to work on. But the AN maturity assessment can unlock multiple dozens more use cases than that for CSPs, very similar to this. So with that, we go to the
participating in that. I'm now going to invite our guest panelists to join us on camera and on microphone. Lynn Smullen, the SVP for Comms, Media, Entertainment and IT at Oracle. Welcome, Lynn. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Good morning, Richard. Thank you so much for having me here. And Jay, thank you so much for including me in this fantastic discussion.
Well, perhaps we can start that off by asking you a little bit about your role within Oracle. Long title, so there's a lot to unpack there. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about it to begin with.
Oh, no, thanks so much, Richard. It's thrilling to be here. Lynn Smullen, as you indicated, my title can be rather long. We'll just abbreviate it with the classic CMIT, which is I'm responsible for great fortune to be responsible for our relationships with our partners and clients across the communications, telecoms, media and entertainment, and IT industries, where my role, Jay, like what you said, is I love what I do. My job and my team's organization, our mission is to help our comms clients, our media clients, solve their toughest business challenges, of which right now there is not an industry where AI and automation is not part of that top theme. So great fortune there. I've spent a career in telecoms. So like Jay, I too have come from the carrier side of the business where I spent time with great companies like Verizon, Cable and Wireless, Savvis, among many, Lumen as well. So thrilled to now be on the with the Oracle team, where bringing together that knowledge and experience within our industry and really helping innovate and transform CSPs and comms providers with what, some of the exciting things that both you, Richard, and Jay spoke about, and how we're unlocking the power of AI and everything from the core network on the RAN side all the way through to how we digitally engage with our clients, both consumer and enterprises as CSPs.
Excellent. Well, we're thrilled to have you with us, and we totally look forward to tapping into your insights from both inside the industry and now as a solution provider to the comms industry. But before we do that, I've got another poll question, and I think these are fun. I enjoy these. So could we have the next one up on screen before we launch into our panel discussion? Okay, so this one is around obstacles to implementations. This is something Jay touched upon. How to go about maturing autonomous networking capabilities in your organization. What's the biggest obstacle? And it may not be any of these, but we've put a few up there to choose from: organizational risk aversion, internal skills, capability gaps, dependence on third-party expertise, or perhaps some other reason. Maybe you don't have obstacles. Maybe you're not really seeing these as strong barriers to overcome. But we're curious about that, because I'm going to open the discussion by asking about, the mindset that you need as an operator to embark upon this journey. So I'll give you folks a few seconds to contribute your live responses. Okay, thank you very much. Interesting. One or two more coming in. Okay, well, we'll close it there, just because I think it gives us a nice snapshot, and to be honest, not necessarily a great surprise to see quite an even split there between skills and capability, dependence on third-party expertise, and organizational risk aversion. So I think that's something that we can get into now. So perhaps I can start with Jay. You work a lot with operators, obviously. When you're engaged with them around autonomous networking as a roadmap for technology change and what it might deliver, and as operators look to increasingly automate their networks and their operational capabilities, are they thinking about it the right way? What are the biggest misconceptions or things that perhaps need recalibrating in the way they're thinking about this? How do you see that?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I think, where to start. As to your point, as we've engaged with operators around the world, there's been some common themes, right? And often the first part of the engagement, it's around, this is a big mountain, right? It's very steep and a big mountain to move. And a little bit of hesitancy around, I don't know if we have it in us right now with everything that we have to invest the time and resources and attention to shift and change out our entire infrastructure. And I'm like, well, that's actually maybe a bit of the misconception, is you don't need to start with this this significant giant use case or swapping out your entire infrastructure. And I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record here, but really they can be small wins, as long as they're targeted and they're aligned with your strategic vision, where you want to be. If it's and that often you get that through spending the time initially doing what I believe to be a low risk but really high ROI investment in the AN level assessment. I think that's the broken record element. You're going to hear me say that over and over, because it really does help an operator understand where they're at. And for their unique environment, every operator is going to be different, from whether it's a cultural fit, aversion to risk, or just fragmented tooling and data, et cetera. They're all slightly different. They're going to have different needs and different opportunities. So with that AN level assessment, it will help you identify what those are and pick a small one, right? Pick an easy one. Look at the low hanging fruit first, get a quick win or two, and then build momentum from there that will carry you through the duration to meet that level 4 objective and goal. And so that's, I think, the best way to approach it.
Yeah, and I think that's a point well made, Jay. Whilst the ramifications of automation can be very far-reaching, and it can look like a huge undertaking, you can start small and you can build a pathway and kind of check your progress along the way and measure ROI and things like that as the catalyst you showed demonstrates. I mean, 25% energy saving in the RAN. I mean, that's a very big thing to potentially achieve. And even if it's not 25%, 15%, 18%, the RAN is a huge consumer of energy and energy bills keep going up. So, there are some genuine returns and benefits. Lynn, perhaps I can bring you in now to kind of talk about AN readiness for operators. How does Oracle kind of work with operators to help them prepare for that journey or accelerate the journey they're already on with regards to automating operations?
Great question. And by the way, that 25%, just to go back on that for a second, Jay, that is tremendous, right? That is just a small example of the impact that leveraging the power of AI, data platform, and autonomous network, but automation throughout the carrier's business can really transform both how we run and operate the network, how we run and operate the systems that support that network, right? The front office, the back office, the OSS, the BSS. But most excitingly, I think for all of us is what that now opens up in terms of revenue opportunities, forward-facing experiences with consumers, digital experiences with our enterprise clients as well, right? And doing really innovative things in healthcare, financial services, but it all comes back to, and it centers back on, how do you leverage the scale and the power of AN, of autonomous networks, and what that builds and creates for a carrier. So that one small win just shows what the potential is for all of us together to collaborate and come together and do that. I'll tell you, one of the things I love about, and then I'll go to the question, I promise, Richard, but one of the things I love about the conversation here that was in that poll is one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing, I know, Jay, you and I have talked about this, is the change in the need for collaboration, because AI is such a revolutionary, that's such an overused term, but it truly is transformative for our age and decade, but really for a lifetime. If you think about what this will now open and do and create in terms of value and change and transformation. And how scary is that to any organization? If any organization doesn't tell you that they have hesitation or fear culturally in their business, what do I do with this? Where do I start? How do I make sure I'm driving return for my shareholders, for my clients, for everything, right? It can be overwhelming. And I think the partnership piece that's also in that poll is how you unlock that safety, right? And how you lean into a greater power of and greater mindset of different elements and partnerships. And Jay, your portfolio there of the partnership that's been created, I think is how we're going to see this transform the CSP space, is together as one with TM Forum, funny enough, Richard, really being at the heart of bringing us all together as a bridge to collaborate and bring the smartest. So I'll tell you, Oracle, back to your question, Richard, sorry about that. But Oracle, have been doing all things data, by the way, for the last 48 years. So we've been like a 48-year startup in the making, is what Safra says, right? So we have been working with CSPs since the beginning of our formation 48 years ago with Larry Ellison, and have been a critical part of all elements of that business. Where that brings us now, though, is a really interesting view and vantage point where we're helping our operators at the network layer, right? And what we just talked about, and how do you unlock the power of autonomous? How do you leverage AI at the edge and at the core? What does that look like? How do you drive efficiencies into the highest cost basis of our business, right? Which is running and operating networks. And how do you drive new insights and revenue into that? So we spend a lot of time there, Richard, where we're working with carriers, both in anything as simple as, and I say that loosely, but simple as the network functions that either we provide or our partners like Nokia and Ericsson provide, but working with them to figure out how they deploy them and how they unlock the power of them to do lots of great things. The next layer up we really operate in is how do we help our carriers do more with less as they run their business? Because spending to run and keep the lights on in your general ledger or in your human, they're super important systems, but you got to figure out a way to unlock the power of automation in that layer too of the business for how you run and operate the business itself, front of the house, back of the house, ERP, CRM. And then finally, at the top layer of the is really about the digital experience, right? And how do you create those next generation of service offerings? And so we're working closely through our industry solutions we're doing, for example, in some pretty exciting things in telehealth and in the electronics medical records, with CSPs being an underpinning and important piece of that for our enterprise communications platform, in how do we together as partners go create new experiences and revenue streams ultimately for the carriers and new experiences for the customers that we serve. So we operate in a whole realm, depending on those three different layers and how we look at it from a carrier's view, all with, I would tell you, all underpinned with the approach of autonomous in every element and removing the human element as much as possible to take advantage of that for security, scale, flexibility, and all that.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So my next question, I think we touched upon it from different angles, is how do you help operators kind of build that AI maturity and overcome their concerns about their own lack of experience or skill sets? You mentioned data, and I think that's a key thing for operators to kind of build a strategy around. You also mentioned ecosystem, perhaps as a resource for skill deficits, so a resource for learning from the solution providers and that ecosystem. Tell us a little bit about how you help operators mature their AI vision and putting that into place in a way that's digestible and implementable.
So I'll tell you, one of the things I love being at Oracle is we use and have built and transformed our own company for the last 8-10 years ourselves, and are on a continuous cycle of doing so. So we call it Oracle at Oracle. And so what we've done is gone from being a product-oriented company to being a services and innovative company leveraging AI. So many of the things I'll talk about, we've gone through that journey. And so part of that is being a good partner, being able to share openly our experiences in how we have transformed our business, leveraging autonomous elements and AI and other kind of various forms for infrastructure and cloud and application all the way up. All of it starts though with, I would tell you, like culture and the culture shift that has to happen fundamentally as we look at that. And so that's one of those things we work very closely with our systems integration partners, our strategy partners like a Sutherland and others, to start with the mission, the vision, and the goal at hand. What are the problems we're trying to solve together, and use that to map our path forward. And then to your point, we do look to tackle a couple of those big challenges. The first is AI is only as good as the data that it's modeled on, right? So, and in order to ensure that, you have to come up with a strong AI data platform strategy across your organization, everything from sourcing it and the governance around that data, to then tracking what is done with that data and how you use it in ways to drive new experiences and efficiencies in your business. But it all starts, again, with that data element. And then working closely with our partners like a Sutherland, because guess what we're finding is that the resources and the human talent, we're all challenged with that, is having the right talent there to help bring the knowledge. And that's where partnerships come in play. And so we work very closely with our partners, and that partnership can span Sutherland, or think of also companies like NVIDIA, who is part of the infrastructure of what we provide. They also have mindsets and innovative folks who, again, come to the table with ideas in creative ways. And then there's also at the application layer too. So it truly is, I would tell you, Richard, it's a partnership in that way, but tackling it, whether it's the infrastructure itself, whether it's the data and how you approach the data, whether it's culture, where do you start with the business case and the culture around it, and then how do you make it all come together? And that can be, as I said, quite overwhelming. But to Richard, what Jay was mentioning earlier is, It starts with a plan and starting out piece by piece. Try a little just to get started.
Okay, I'm definitely going to come back to you on ecosystem, but also that kind of shift of functionality out to the edge. But a question for Jay, kind of related in terms of identification of those use cases. So focusing on the RAN is a very rich environment. There's a lot happening. So, if you're talking to a mobile operator, what are the kind of considerations that might be on the table for discussions in terms of where to apply autonomy? How do you identify where those wins might come, or those lower hanging fruit? Is it that operators come with a challenge that they've already identified, or a potential use case they think they can put in place? Tell us a little bit about how those engagements might work. What angles are they coming in from?
Yeah, we've seen both approaches. Sure, I'm off mute. Yeah, we've seen both approaches where an operator has a challenge or business opportunity that they want to take advantage of. A function is moving out, a function is moving in. It's they're deploying new technology, and they want to invest in the technology, maybe not necessarily in scaling linearly like they've done in the past. And so they have a specific use case that they're after, that they want to go solve, whether that's provisioning, deploying, testing, or it could be that they know where they want to be. They believe that moving to an AN level 4, they're going to be able to handle the future as the future comes. They're going to be able to see the OpEx reductions and have better capital investment plans. But they don't know where to begin. And so the AN level assessment, again, helps them identify that. And it first of all identify what domains that the domain that's most relevant to them at this particular time. And then it'll break down the gaps again and what those opportunities are. And if they still don't know, then of course we can bring in what we've learned elsewhere, right? And there's ample opportunity in your survey or your research indicated it, in preventive maintenance, predictive fault management,
Right.
proactive maintenance. There's so much that can be done. And all these things come together. Lynn mentioned the data has to be there, and part of it may be just starting with, how do you govern your data a little bit different? How do you structure that differently? How can you sanitize it in an autonomous way? So there's a lot of opportunities to begin. I'm more prone to the autonomous networks focused on fault management, provisioning, and proactive maintenance.
Yeah, and certainly there's a lot of challenges in that kind of work, as we've described and outlined. So, Lynn, to come back to you, thank you, Jay. Kind of picking up what you said about that functionality, and then also from what Jay said about use cases. How do you help operators migrate functionality out to the edge to perhaps support some of these use cases? And what are the kind of critical steps in achieving that? Or what kind of workloads are you seeing operators want to migrate out to the edge? Tell us a little bit about what you see.
Oh, great question. So, as I look and I center on the network side, just like Jay said, some of this is formal engagement we're seeing, where we're engaging in partnerships, for example, with the TM Forum and with DTW Ignite, where we are showcasing a SATCOM with an edge, which is pretty interesting, where it's the whole idea is leveraging autonomous network and AI to track for potential breaches of SLA and performance, and then also to take action on remediation through basically closed loop operations long before a failure could even occur. So we're doing, kind of exciting, I would tell you, really kind of cutting edge things with a network of partners, no pun intended. In this case, it's with satellite and 5G combined, where that is an organized, kind of structured. We got together and thought, how do we tackle this? We need to organize and get this kind of on the board with all of us together, collaborating from a network and a technology perspective. So that's one realm, I would tell you. On the other edge of the spectrum are, we have Oracle folks who sit alongside our clients in their offices. And sometimes it's literally just a conversation about, gosh, we're having a hard time with optimizing some of the performance and the experiences with our customers who are floating or roaming or closed loop between our 4G network, our LTE, and our 5G network. Do you think there's something we could do there? How should we tackle this? And we got together, and I happened to get a phone call and said, hey, let's give NVIDIA a call. Let's go ask that. So it literally can be as formal as a structured engagement like DTW Ignite, fantastic and amazing things that we're showcasing there. Or Jay, the one that you mentioned as well, really exciting about energy, efficiencies and sustainability, or it literally can be just the humans that are sitting in a room talking about the biggest challenges of that day, of that moment, and saying, huh, you know what? Let's go give a call to, let's go figure out how, is there a way we could leverage AI to help us solve this? And I think that's the question we keep asking our employees and our people to start asking is start asking ourselves that question. How can I leverage AI to do this better, faster, more with less, or can I do it differently?
Yeah. And from an infrastructure perspective, still at the edge, what does that look like? How do you support that in terms of infrastructure provision, you know, to enable some of these use cases and to empower some of this, you know, kind of blue sky thinking about possible benefits?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Look at the infrastructure layer. Oracle Cloud or OCI is really built for scale. We are the platform that NVIDIA and all of the large trained models are leveraging for good reason. And we were built for scale. But that scale and security also means we're really built to support large scale deployments like network and the critical and the volume of data, the volume of transactions and the scale that has to happen there. So whether it's, you know, we're built for telco scale, but we're built at the edge, and some of the unique things that I think are kind of eye openers for our customers and our clients and CSPs when they learn it is that we have a very unique approach we've taken where we have a flexible architecture that no matter the scale, whether we deploy what we call a roving edge, miniaturized version of our OCI cloud in a submarine, all the way through to the massive scale we do for sovereign data, for country level deployments that you've heard us talking about with Saudi Arabia and some of the exciting things we're doing there. It is the same platform at scale. So for a carrier, what that means is whether you put it at the edge of the RAN or you put it in the core or you put it elsewhere on a customer prem, it's the same scaled footprint. That means you gain tremendous operational efficiency because of that consistency. But the flexibility that that allows, where your return on investment, right? That means you have to spend less to do the same, if not more, because it's not massive infrastructure atop existing massive investments. So you get great scale there. And you know, there's a lot more detail there too on just the shaping. We've learned a lot. We've had the benefit of, we're kind of, like I said, the 10-year startup in OCI or the 48-year startup in data. But the 10-year startup in OCI meant we got to learn from the last 10 years from what everybody else did and came to it with a view. We brought in people, brilliant people in the space and said, if you could reapproach cloud for infrastructure to scale for what's needed for financial services and banking, for governments, for telecoms companies, the heart of what we do, what would you do differently? And those are some of the things we do within like the way we network and RDMA networking and off-box virtualization. And so there's really some pretty exciting elements for how we have architected our infrastructure layer that speak to why all of those AI, all of the massive AI models are selecting and running atop OCI, and why it makes so much sense for CSPs as they start to think about deployment of AI RAN and the those data platforms that are needed at the edge to do the exciting solutions we're talking about.
Right, thank you, Lynn. So we've just got 1 or 2 minutes left. So last question, I'm going to ask Jay and Lynn just to give me a 30-second answer each. So I do apologize for that. But if you're engaged with operators and they're hesitant about getting on the journey or pursuing further that journey to automation and the you know, the transformation of the edge environment to support that, what advice would you give? Maybe I'll come to you first, Jay.
So I think that the advice that I would give a CSP that's, you know, putting their toe in the water and checking to see where it's at is go in, right? And don't go in alone. It takes a village. I mean, it really does. There's so much knowledge and capability out there. Bring others who have done it. Be bold, right? But be thoughtful in your process in doing this. And get the early wins and build the momentum from there.
Very good. Thank you very much, Jay. Lynn, final thoughts?
Oh gosh, so I would say ditto to everything Jay just said, which is spot on. And we're doing it together, right? Jay and I do it together. I would tell you again, don't go it alone. Reach into your partners, ask for help, ask for questions. Just start. That's the other thing. Just start because and have a growth mindset where this is a learning process for everybody. We are going to fast fail and continue to innovate, and that's how we're going to do great things together. And then the last thing I would say is make sure that it's not a science project. And I say that as a passionate STEM person, but make sure it's oriented around outcomes, around business outcomes for the business outcomes for the clients that we serve, but it ultimately needs to be oriented and grounded on outcomes.
Very good. Very wise indeed. Lynn, thank you so much for your contribution to the discussion. Jay, thank you so much as well for your slides and also your contribution to the discussion. Much appreciated, and thank you to Sutherland. Okay, well, thank you very much, folks, for your time today. I hope that the webinar's been useful to you, and thank you again to Jay and to Lynn for their fantastic contributions. We're going to wrap the webinar there, but thank you very much for your time today, and that closes the webinar today. Thanks for your time.